Evening, everybody. How you all doing? Welcome to Question Time Live and episode 49. Just had a look in that before we come on, actually. Can't believe it. 49 hours of me rambling on. That's off to you folks for listening to it. Hope you're all getting ready for spring. It's felt like it's around the corner. Always such a massive one in the koi world, but Chris is being all negative in office, reckoning we've got some nasty weather coming. So I'm choosing to ignore him at the minute. And I'm a Man City fan for the evening as well, for all those that follow our sport. So fingers crossed they show Arsenal how to play football this evening, because I really can't take that for a year if Arsenal do manage to win the league. But there we go. Enough about football. It gives us all something else to chat about other than fish. So, not got too much to report about this evening, to be honest with you. I've just been very, very busy with Steve, to be honest, got the magazine right back on track, which is amazing. So, working mighty hard to keep that up and finally getting into some contributors and cracking some of the sort of problems and stuff we've been raising. Had a great chat with a guy today around water purification systems and everything on that route. So very, very soon we're going to have some new content coming out on Koi Talk about that, and also shaping everything else we've got happening. So there we go. Before I get into it, I've got a bit of koi appreciation lined up this evening, and I think Chris is back with a live auction next Tuesday, and we will be back on weekly from that point as well on. So, mega. Ian, evening, Ricky, sat on the train traveling and watching the show. Happy days. Cheers, buddy. So they'll be back weekly from then on. Now Joe's sort of in and settled. We've got enough sort of resource in the team, hopefully, to keep that up consistently. So, there we go. Question-wise, feel free to start dropping any questions in. As of Friday, we're going to start pre-recording some of these sessions to work through the old questions. So I am just going to focus on tonight's lives as we are, and all them older questions from weeks gone by we're going to work through in a series of different videos, to be honest with you. And if anyone out there watching fancies nipping on and asking a question, let us know in the comments and we'll see if we can set that up quickly. It's just a case of pinging a link over and we can get you to join in. So, like I said, it would be nice to get people on air as much as possible, because we can have conversations that can evolve in all kinds of different directions, make it really, really interesting for everyone. So, I'm not going to wait right until the end to do the questions. So I'm going to drop sort of midway through the appreciation one. And there we go, Crafty. £1,325 raised on the raffle. That is amazing. Thank you, everybody, for that. What we got left on that, just about a couple of weeks, something like that. Try and get it up to 1,500 quid if we can. That'd be pretty awesome. But I love the power of community when everyone comes together, what can be done for such amazing causes. So hats off. Amazing, everyone. Right then, first question up. Let's have a look here. Bill Lindsay. Hi, Ricky. First year heating, currently holding 10C. When would you recommend starting to raise the temp to 18 and then 22, 24? Right. Obviously, with sort of saving costs in mind and being the most efficient, I would say when you start to move ambiently well above 10, but you're finding you're possibly getting some fluctuation. So I reckon that might happen in sometime mid to end of March, around that. Getting into April is probably the time for me. Get it up to 18. Just get them out that nasty spring period. Let all the system wake up. Start building your feeding up a little bit, and away we go. I have written a really, really in-depth article on this kind of thing in, I think it's issue, I know Steve's going to have 21, 22, something like that. Is it 21, Steve? Because I can see him in background, folks. He'll drop me a message through in a minute. But anyway, that one coming, I think it's the issue coming out. It's probably 22. I'd always get them mixed up. Really in-depth piece. So if you're not subscribed, be well worth looking out for the back issues of that one coming up, and then be sure to get your subscription after that when we open them back up. So, but yeah, I think we're kind of, towards mid end of March, early April, get it up there, get your system through, because you're going to get some disruption in your pond, to be honest, because your filter's waking up. You're going to start feeding a bit more with activity levels. It's just what you're going to do is probably have one phase of that where you then move into the summer temperatures, as opposed to the people unheated trapped in spring, where you're getting all the fluctuation. That's when life becomes a nightmare. So yeah, that's it. Steve just got its issue 21, which is coming out at the end of Feb/early March. That'll be delivered with people. So that is the one where we've had subscriptions paused for new subscribers, but it will be available around that time to buy the back issue. But it's really, really big in-depth piece I wrote on that. So yeah, look out for it. Right, next one up. Lee Hadfield. How you doing, buddy? Is it a good time to go to Japan for toe size selection at America? Why are you asking that, Lee? I do wonder. Yes, absolutely. This is toe size season, so it's always debatable when's the right time, and depending what you're looking for. For most dealers, this is a great time of year to be going out there, because right now, to be honest, for their sort of affordable toe size and things like that, and then as we move later on into the season, kind of April into May, when you'll get higher level sort of jumbo toe size and tachi stack come available. So, but yeah, overall, sort of winter spring is the best season for that one. But be sure to let us know why, Lee. Very curious about that one. Right, next one up. Abby Bain, how are you doing, Abby? What filter start do you recommend? To be honest, I've got two preferences on this one. I've got the EA filter gel. Really big fan of that stuff. I've been using it in the other various forms that have been over the years, but the product itself, very, very smart, very effective. And yeah, I mean, Christ, it was when it was, say, in a different variation many years ago from a different manufacturer. Amazing, incredible stuff. Really, really impressed with how that did. And then, yeah, back to plus the PSB bacteria. Now, you can't always get that in the colder season, but as spring now, it should be readily available. That is fantastic for just seeding a pond up. It's a photosynthetic, so it's a cleaning bacteria. And what that does is it's very good at removing ammonia if you're in a sort of pickle like that. But it's also nitrite so much it's not going to do. It's very different to filter gel, the EA filter gel, which is all the strains of filter bacteria that you want. This one is better at just cleaning up your organics in your water, improving the environment, which can aid filtration. And like I say, it can remove ammonia quite effectively. So either or very good products, but the PSB, if you're after something to sort of dose the pond with to improve things, it's one of those products for me, a little bit like sake. I think everybody always seems to see the results, and therefore it's a product they're happy to spend the money on and keep rebuying. And that's not changed in all the years I've known that product to be in existence or used it. So, yeah, happy days. Right, next one up. Dave Harley. Ricky, explain the filter setup on the growing ponds at your place. Yeah, so there's two different ones. The smaller ponds, 1,200 gallons. They're all just very basic filters, brush chambers leading, or single bottom drain into a brush chamber, which then leads to a fluid bed, which has got 300 litres of K1. And all of the aeration drives through the fluid bed, and the water returns via like a high pressure spray bar into the pond and through a UV. So that's that one. Nothing more complicated to it. The heating system runs independently because it's off of a boiler. So that runs to a heat exchanger that's sat inside the fluid bed. Works really, really well. And then, yeah, the big ponds are single bottom drain, the 3.5K one, single bottom drain into a drum filter and then into another fluid bed, which holds 500 litres of K1. And recently I've been adding on the addition of the shower filters, which are pumped directly from the bottom of the pond up and over. And they're the 2 meter wide showers, 40 that have just been running with the, I forget what the word is now, the Shiro bacteria home media. So works really well. So really quite simple. The air pumps on the bigger ponds, there's 2 of them, one running into the pond and one running into the fluid bed. I think it's an AirTech 130 and 150. So plenty cruising away on them. So yeah, nice question. Martin Nee. I see many people putting their new koi into their pond with the water. Is this okay, or like me, is it wrong? Good question, that. So I mean, this is going to depend. I would always choose not to put the water in. Ultimately, though, what I would say is, in that case, in my case, when a shipment's arriving, that is such heavily polluted water. I mean, it's pretty much pure ammonia. It's terrible. So that you don't want in the pond, because that is just going to give you a whole load of hassles and filter. And your filter's got to then deal with it, process it, might cause a spike within the system. You just don't want that in that system whatsoever. When you're, say you're buying a fish from a dealer, taking it home just a couple of hours, something like that, there's not likely to be much pollution in there. So putting the water in is probably not really going to cause you any harms. What I was going to move on to say was that obviously the issue when you wouldn't want that is if there's a potential issue in the pond where the fish have come from. But if that's the case, then it's not just the water that's going to be the problem. The fish you're introducing is going to be the problem as well. So that's not going to make any difference. That's why it's just important to know and trust where you're buying from, and also potentially do your own quarantine as well. But yeah, that's just really what it depends down to. A couple of hours of one fish in a bag coming, being moved from a dealer to your hobbyist pond. I can't see there being any issues or reasons why you wouldn't probably put that water in if you really had to. I probably would always prefer to get rid of it. But then, like I say, the fish coming from Japan with such heavy levels of pollution in there, you don't want to be putting that in. I mean, that is just going to cause chaos. So get rid of that stuff. Always depends on the scenario. This is a good question. Joe, question: who's the hardest working Koi Wholesale employee? We're gonna have to get one of them. I'll have to see if we can set a poll up on that and let people decide who they think it is. But I'm no comment at the minute on that one. What I would say, we're about to have some real fun. I've set up some training for everybody. We're focusing mainly on breeders first, so everybody's got a set of flashcards at the minute for to be studying on. So we're going to be having quite a bit of fun with that, and a league table in the office to see who's heading up. So should be a good crack. And Chris is definitely not feeling the pressure of that one. Brilliant. Next up, Mr. Koi 13. How do you expect the Takano Senki grow on to differ compared to the Tanaguchi grow on you are hosting? What differences in size, etc., do you expect to develop in both breeders? Yeah, very different Sankis, the two of them. Now, obviously, the Tanaguchi ones are in Japan, so I've not got any control over how they're raised. The Takano ones I have, they're here with me. Yeah, growth-wise, I mean, they're both the different body types, that is for sure. So Takano, you're getting, body power is quite incredible in them fish. And the Sumi, very sort of different in that you get Sumi fallback sort of like baby Sumi. We're going to see a fair bit of it, but not as much as we possibly see with Tanaguchi Senki moving forward. But both lines very good. I mean, there's Sakai blood in both, but a very different mix. And the outcome has been very different, to be honest with you, because the body lines of the fish are completely different. Both styles I really like, get quite a bit of Subo Sumi in both lineages as well. And it depends. Tanaguchi's got a couple of different sets going on that throw different variations, one of which is quite a heavily Sumi'd Sanki, where that Sumi develops in a completely different way as well. It more kind of slowly recedes over time and with age. So, yeah, how do I expect? Both are going to grow well, really well. I think size-wise, obviously the Tanaguchi have been growing for longer, but I still expect in the time frame we've got, I'll probably be matching the size with the Takano ones, to be honest. But yeah, both great lineages. Can't wait to see. It's actually going to be a nice comparison, sort of side by side, to see how they do. But the Takano fish have all settled in really well. The feeder's back on there now. It's had its first increment today as well, seeing as though they're looking so good. And yeah, they're already starting to come on. So I'm excited to see where we do get in the end with those ones. Next up, Steve, how are we doing, buddy? Any advice? Oh, you messaged me about an air ozone system. Right, again, this is not an area I'm going to tread into in depth because I don't do ozone. Probably most people seen that question. They'll probably expect that answer. What I do know with that is ozone is one of these things that, to me, there's too much of a fine line between it doing a world of good and it causing total kind of destruction. And I know these sort of things like the air ozone and these other small systems only dose it on levels they can never do any harm. But I'm just not. I'm not into the concept of it. There's plenty of other ways, in my opinion, that you can achieve similar results without having to create such an environment where the systems are generally, expensive, and the results you're getting. What are you using it for? Just to eliminate organics. Well, we can do that in other ways. A protein skimmer can do that. Water changing can do that. Potassium permanganate can do that. Although that's not the route I'd just naturally go down. For most people. And yeah, the rest of it, lower bacteria levels? Well, you can get a UV sterilizer, which is much more controlled and safer if that's what you're wanting to do. So yeah, for me, that's just going to be one of them ones I'm going to draw a blanket line under of no thank you. So good question though. But to be honest, the ozone systems are not one I see being fitted that much, too much of it these days. I know there's some big advocates out there, which is fair enough, and if you're experienced with it, but again, I'll say it, my whole mantra of keeping it simple, an ozone system does not fit with that. So that's where I'll leave it there. Paul, how you doing, Paul? How's the weather over in Italy at the minute, buddy? Ricky, on Koi end this week, 2 US koi keepers were lightly stock fed and over filtered pond, struggling to fully cycle, nitrite 0.5. Told, as you said, to stop changing water, reduce flow. Yeah, to be honest with you, that's where I'd probably be looking at that. I have seen, obviously, establishing, nitrite, and this is actually part of the conversation I've been having with the guy regards water today. There is so much to all of this, and especially trace nitrite readings, because there's so much in a pond if they're not getting incoming water right, example, or certain things that can be in the water that can suppress your filter, damage your filter, and things like that. So that's more, to be honest with you, in this scenario. Don't get me wrong, I have seen that where ponds have struggled to seed up in the past. But ultimately, if there's enough capacity there, you shouldn't be getting the trace readings, although it depends on the age of the system, because there's a certain part, for a while, you're going to expect to have trace nitrite, because, in fact, to be honest, most active ponds, I would expect to see some level of trace nitrite. It's just very, very hard to zero it in an active pond. But if it's a new system, especially, it just takes a while to establish. So that's one variable factor we've got to look at in that scenario. Then the other is there potentially something wrong in the incoming water that's causing problems enough just to be causing, niggly problems with the biofilm to cause that trace nitrite. So, yeah, I mean, in general, if it's an established pond that has been running well and you get it, there are two things, as you said, about water changing. Reducing flow, so getting more retention time in your filter is always the big one that I've seen help with trace nitrite readings over the years. Because yeah, you need that contact time, especially in a pond that's, like you're saying there, lightly stocked, unfed and massively overfiltered. And yeah, it might be that pond benefits from more food, more fish, etc., going into it just to load the filter up there. But I would possibly say this is more the other way, and I'd be looking towards the incoming water and making sure all things chlorine, there's no traces of anything like that, which is going to affect it. Plenty to consider, and a lot of variables to go into, and I've not got all the information to give an in-depth sort of analysis on it. But yeah, trace nitrite is a big one, and I think some of this information we're going to be putting together is really going to help on this, to be honest, because like I say, for me, so many potential causes with that one that can be avoided one way or another. What we've got here, Steve Watson, how you doing, buddy? Ricky, why do some koi travel better than others, and how long would it be for them to come round after the move? You'd expect them to be normal behaviour and feeding. That's really case by case and the environment, to be honest with you, Steve. Tosai we've just had in, for example, I've been, crikey, only in for a week now, and you see some of them already starting to fall down a bit with sleeping sickness stuff and not recovery. One batch there, they've had parasite problems, so flukes not long after coming in, so they're taking a bit of settling down. Other batches of Tosai can take weeks, it can take a couple of months sometimes. But yeah, it depends on the environment. You know, if there's something niggling in the environment itself, it could take a long time for it to settle down, especially if it's come from an environment where everything, it's been happy with everything and doing well. You pop it in that kind of environment and it might not settle down. It might not like what's going off in there. So lots of variables to that. How warm's the water? Has it had any shock along the way? Loads and loads of things to it all, mate. So yeah, I know I seem to be saying that a lot tonight, but this is actually something, again, I've been having a chat with recently. You know, advice, there's so many variables to a lot of these things that it's hard just to give blanket advice, and I'm always cautious to do that too much because what works in one scenario or fixes one scenario possibly won't work in another when certain variables are considered. But normally you'd expect after sort of like 2 or 3 weeks for it to be settled in. If it's not, we need to be looking probably more at the environment and as to why it's not. And there's certain things like using salt can be really good at settling fish in. If you had that kind of damage and they're not settling, it can just help them adapt to a new environment, or while they're struggling to adapt to a new environment, can just prop up the osmotic system and help it settle in. So yeah, hope that's useful. Perhaps getting through these tonight quite efficiently. Terry, looking to start heating for over the summer. What is the best way to raise temps daily, weekly, and by how much? To be quite frank, when they're going up, I don't mither too much about it. The Secret Sankey on the Tucano event fish, they were at 17 when they came in. When they come back from the event, I just set the stat straight to 22, and it probably did that within, gradually over about 48 hours to get up to heat. So that's enough because they really don't mind getting warm. It's coming the other way that I see all the problems, because at that point we're instantly sort of losing filter performance, we're losing immune efficiency. There's all them kind of factors to consider at that point. And and you're sort of in a scenario, if it rocks them, their immune system struggles to recover them naturally as much. So, I won't worry about it too much going upwards, mate. The thing that in that scenario, if you was moving a fish straight from a cold pond into a hot one, that is going to cause some heat shock, and you've got to be careful there. I've seen that cause issues. I've seen that cause almost instant colour failure as well, which is quite remarkable, especially with sumi. But yeah, if they're in there and you're already at a decentish temperature, and it's going to come up, say, over 2 or 3 days anyway, because it's not just going to heat up instantly like that, then just go for it. And I don't foresee you having any issues. John Gordon, can you give info on the air curtain bar that you use? Yes, I'm sure I wrote that down somewhere. If not, I think it's Brandon's normally watching this, so I'll ask him to sort of I can't remember what his company name is that he's set up, but if it is, to drop in the comments. If not, I'll certainly get the details for next week anyway, to let you know, because great system. He's just shown me some of the other ones he's been making, actually fully circular ones with a fully rounded piece. They look mighty impressive. So we will get you that information. Let's say if he's not watching this evening, I'll make sure we get it through for next week for you guys. Terry again. At what temperature would you look to turn showers back on, as was offer advice for the winter? Interesting, different sort of mixed feelings on that one, Terry. It depends sort of where you're at. Personally, I mean, we've not turned any of ours off, certainly on the outside ponds, because it's the only source of filtration on the pond. It's just above level, but they are closed trickle towers. It's not like there's massive gaps in them for aeration. But yeah, to be honest, in most scenarios, I probably wouldn't look to turn it off. It's only if you're extreme and you're outside and you're obviously pumping a lot of water up from the bottom, then you're going to want to be more mindful of that. But you can also, insulate the showers a little bit as opposed to turning it off, because what you've done in turning it off, although they do seed up quite quickly, and if it's not your main filtration system, you will have killed all the biofilm off. So that's got to re-establish. So it's not going to be fully there for you from the off when you need it. So I'd be more inclined to certainly insulate the shower where you can, as opposed to turning it off for the future. So even now, probably I would say get that turned back on. And if you're worried about temperatures, just insulate around it. And certainly not going to do a lot if your water's cold, but you will start developing biofilms, albeit at a very, very slow rate. So yeah, hope that's useful. Koi Martin, hardest working is Andy. That's what you call a political answer. Yeah, that's going to cause some debate in office, that one for sure. But I think it's fair to say all around it's a cracking team. Everybody puts a shift in, to be fair. Nobody shirks any responsibilities, and it's nice to be around. So yeah, well, I'm going to go with that one and share the love. Right, let's have a look. Paul, what level of nitrites are you okay to leave medium long term just for the filter to catch up? Would you sort of watch it? I am, again, I mean, there's going to be, uproar on this, but, around 0.3, getting up to 0.5. I don't want to be at 0.5 for a massive amount of time, but that trace sort of up to about 0.3, to be honest with you, I think long term is really kind of viable. This is a conversation, again, there's a lot more to get into. We're going to focus on the whole water thing first, but to be honest, this is an area then where I want to we can find the right people to discuss it, is what is that truly acceptable level, and what's the impact of it from the people who know this stuff from a scientific degree, because I think that it's just a feeling that it has to be zero. And I see this sort of with people who start testing with nanometers and getting really low readings. Expectation is they're trying to get zero. I see people with ammonia at 0.0 something, and they think they've got a problem. You haven't. That's natural. It's in there. Your filter's processing it. That's not an issue. Zero. It's unrealistic. So, yeah, that's sort of my view on that one. Having seen, a lot of ponds have this sort of niggly trace, and the fish just go on. I think if you're hitting a point where it's hitting 0.5, and sort of being a bit stubborn at that, you have got to look more at your system and how it's performing, and then certainly, yeah, addition of salt at that point to help prevent against any long-term damage from it. Shirley, good evening. What project variety do see you growing this year? Right, yeah. Already, what have we got? I've got some Shisui coming from Kawakami, and I'm, again, growing Shisui is not one that really excited me until I had Kawakami Shisui for the first time, and I've managed to get some this year as well, which I'm buzzing about, because these things grow at a phenomenal rate and produce such quality in bodies. So, yeah, looking forward to that. I've also just secured some Kano Goshki, which I'm also excited for. Not really done anything with Goshki for a few years. And yeah, for me, Kano's where it's at with them. So yeah, I've just managed to get the sort of quality level of tosai that I want, that I'm very, very happy about. As for the rest, what have I got set out? Just about finished with the Okawa Shiros, which have been the winter grow on, back from those very, very, very small this side. They're now rocking some serious size. So that's about done. I've got a batch of tosai from Sakai I'll be pushing. I've also got the pond that's now got the Dainichi Kohaku plus the Sankey from Sakai I've got, which come from the Dragon Ball lineage. So there's a few bits coming together already. I've also got a pond of amazing tamasaba from NND. I know that'll get a mixed reaction, but these are honestly just the quality of them fascinating, and how they grow fascinates me as well. So I'm going to be doing a bit of video content on that. But got the normal red and whites and what they're now calling the Koi tamasaba, which really are. I'm getting sort of Shiro, Utsuri patterns, Showa patterns. There's even the odd Chiba looking thing in there. So quite funky, a bit of fun for me as well. So yeah, and other ones we'll wait and see. I'm trying to get some Benny Goi from a certain breeder, and hopefully I'll have some news on that tomorrow, fingers crossed. So yeah, let's see. The Takano Sankis, obviously, but that one's going to finish sort of in May time when the event's coming to an end. So yeah, always something, and there'll be plenty more yet, no doubt, surely. Right, I'm going to drop in now to questions are firing through. Thank you very much for that. The Koi appreciation. So what I've got for you today is a pretty epic Dainichi Showa, which I got. This was from the first year's batch. So here we go. This is Mona Lisa line, the one that I'm really enjoy at Dainichi. 25 cm Tosai at the time, unsexed, and one I just absolutely, I don't need to say any more other than just look at the head and that bone structure and body line. This was the standout thing for this fish. Obviously, skin quality looks great. The rest of it, I wasn't even looking at. I couldn't get past that head and mouth, to be honest with you, because it just screamed potential. So this was from the batch in 2021 that I got, and been growing it for 2 seasons now. It is a male fish, so at Nisai obviously sexed it, knew it was male, and then chose to grow it on this year because of its size potential. Now, I've not got the Nisai picture, but what I'm going to jump straight into here is the video of it now. Sansai, not forgetting that it's a male fish. And I will just going to say, when you see the video, it's not bent. It just swims very awkwardly. So I just want to get that one out of the way. So yeah, here we go. Just see it jars its body there, but what a beast. That's male. The best bit about this is now that is Sansai, so not even actually 36 months old. 70 cm. Absolutely blown away with what this fish has done. 70 cm male Sansai raised with 22 other fish in a 3,500 gallon pond. And it's not the only one that's achieved that kind of size either. It's an absolute monster. And you can obviously see the development and progress of the Sumi as well, which has been remarkable. But for me, it's all about that body. This is a male fish of serious caliber. The caliber that can grow beyond 80 centimeters quite easily in the right environment. Love jarring its body on that. But yeah, look from that again there. I mean, serious development. But what you can actually see, and this is where I always say about body and bone structure, the bone structure of that fish hasn't changed. When you see it now, what it's done is obviously gained a lot of volume, a lot more flesh and fat, but the bone structure hasn't changed. The head, still enormous. It's still got that same taper that it had, still got the huge mouth. It's an absolute machine. Backbone hugely prominent, as it always was. It's just going to keep going, fingers crossed. And yeah, Motogoro, I mean, from a pattern perspective now, starting to drop through on the fins. Just crazy. Shiroji's been coming on quite well in the past few weeks as well. Now, I've been more conditioning rather than raising. But yeah, that quality, just insane. But yeah, 70 cm for a male Sansai. I mean, I was absolutely delighted. It kept pace. It's kept pace all season with the female Akawa Karashigoi that was growing in there, which has been quite remarkable. So yeah, there we have it, folks. Them shoddy males, done it again with that one, and that is achievable for most people. To be honest with you, you know, when the right conditions are set up, when the right fish is selected in the first place. Yeah, Absolutely love it. So let's just hit it one more time for everyone. Sumi development's been quite superb, to be honest with you. Big changes, but yeah, there we go. Absolutely love it. That head up, just absolutely crazy. So there you have it with that one, folks. That's a little snippet for you there. Really, not too much. I mean, quality of that is you don't have to analyze it all that much. It's clear and there for everyone to see, to be honest. So yeah, mega fish. There we go. And that's the potential of Dainichi. You know, full stop, male, female, serious genetic potential in there. So yeah, get back to a few more questions. Paul, how are Tanaguchi Kohaku? What blood do they have in them? Yeah, I mean, you never get a straight answer out of Tanaguchis. You don't a lot of breeders, but he buys a lot of top parents. I know he's got Momotaro blood he's used certainly for the Ginrin Kohaku, been the sort of base of that. He buys parent fish from Sakai quite a lot, which is a lot of the foundations, but yeah, you don't get too many answers out of them. What breeders tend to do often is they'll sort of state the female fish that they've used, or the female sort of lineage. What they will not often do is go into depth on the males, but obviously at Taniguchi, it is, you know, we're at a point where it is his lineage. He's been breeding for a lot of generations now. Obviously, new blood is introduced, different parent sets to play with, but ultimately now it's a Taniguchi style of Kohaku. Because we see that, because it's fair to say that the patterns do become a trait at some breeders. They just manage to get a set together that produces a lot of great patterns. And that's what you get from Taniguchi Kohaku. You know, he is an absolute king. 2 steps, 3 steps marathons. He's gotten by the truckload and does a great job. Whereas you see some lineages sort of move towards Matsunoki kind of style, you do get more blocky, heavy sort of patterns. And I do remember years back, Ikarashi Kazuto used to get the most phenomenal Subo Sumi so consistently on his Sankey. And there's no chance that was just a coincidence, because there was more Subo Sumi than there was Kasani Sumi. So, yeah, they can work on that stuff for sure. And it all depends on the sort of style of fish they're looking to raise as well. But ultimately, Taniguchi, we are talking about Taniguchi line of fish, because he's been doing this stuff, especially with Kohaku and Sankey, for absolutely years now. And the traits are very consistent. That is very stabilized. So, say, other than the odd new set coming through that will throw some variations, we know exactly what we're going to get from there year after year now. Keith Morgan, is there an easy method to sex a koi? I've got Nisai now, I've never done it before. Yeah, easy, absolute easiest way. And first I'm going to go with here, if you're not confident in handling them, use some anesthetic, because that's just going to make your life easier and it's going to be a lot less stress for the fish. So yeah, what you want to do, if you anesthetize it, you can roll the fish over. You can see, I'm not sure if there's any pictures online, you can find the different vent shapes, but just gently squeeze in just around either side of the vent to see if you can get any sperm out is one way. Like I say, you tend to get a little bump over the vent for females, and you get more of a slit for male fish. And then the other way, which takes a lot more practice, is to look down the first ray of the pec fins for oiboshi, which is the little spots that male fish get. But my God, you know, in mature male fish, they'll be very prominent. When they're not, these things can be an absolute mare to see. You sort of have to lift the fish out, let the water run off a little bit, and catch it in the right light. So you seriously got to have good eyes for that one. But yeah, not an easy. Just I think the easiest method, if you're unsure, is to roll it and try and check the vent to see if you can get any milk out. That's not, however, a guarantee that the fish is female. If no milk comes out, it just might not be producing the sperm at the minute. So that's why you got to try and tick all the methods: vent shape, whether or not it's producing sperm, and then the oil bushy on the peg fin. So it's a tricky task. It even catches the pros out a lot of the time. So if you are giving it a shot, don't beat yourself up if you do get it wrong, because it's a tricky one. And some height is actually a lot harder than others as well to sex until they become really, really mature. So yeah. Terry, what would a Kohaku with strong Benny at the head and slightly light on the body suggest? Could the Benny on the body fall back? No, generally in a younger fish, you should have the Benny stronger on the head than it is on the body. That's perfectly natural because it's just skin on the head. There's no scales. There's nothing else. So it should be. And what will often happen is the Benny will then play catch up on the body as the pigment spreads into the scales over the years, which I've talked about quite a bit. That will then roll over, and eventually this is what you're trying to create, a uniform color on the body that will then match up to the head. That's should be the process. You're going to get a massive variation. If it's color loss, you'll see it looking completely different, like it is falling apart. But it's perfectly natural in fish of 2 years, 3 years old, and even at 4 years old to have that variation in colour. It's not until really 4, 5, 6 and beyond, with good raising as well, you're going to get that colour to marry up and match up. And it might not always marry up and match up. I've seen this in ponds where our water has been used a lot, really sort of holds that development back. And then certainly if you're not using colour food, it might take a lot longer for that process to happen, because that pigment needs some encouragement. Likewise, if the fish are being kept without much UV to the water surface or into the water, then you're going to struggle there as well, because that is needed to get the cells to develop out into the scale. So I'd have to see the fish, Terry, to be honest, to truly say if that was the case. But it sounds like that's what it is, just having the variation between the head and the body where it's stronger on the head. Be more concerned if it's the other way around. If you've got lighter on the head, that's an indication that something's possibly going to go wrong with that colour. So bear that one in mind. Ian Reed, hi Ricky, what are your thoughts on keeping salt in the pond long term? You don't need to be keeping salt in the pond long term. I see no reason to be doing that. I can't see, if you've got sort of background reading 0.3%, like half ounce to the gallon, you're not going to have any massively detrimental effects. Higher than that, absolutely, you wouldn't want to be doing that. But it depends what you say long term. If you're on about permanently, then no. But if for a few months because you've got a nitrite problem, or a few months over the summer just to aid against any spikes, then I don't see any issues with that whatsoever. But you want to be, it's that background level. When we go beyond sort of half ounce, that is when we're really using it as a treatment, so to speak. So that's when I'll go up to like 1 ounce to the gallon to help the fish recover from sleeping sickness, or even possibly beyond that sometimes, depending how severe the sleeping sickness is. But let's say that then needs to work in conjunction with heating the water up as well. So quite a lot to consider. But yeah, if you're on about long term as in permanently, no. What you don't want to be doing is ultimately just using it long term because you can't get on top of your nitrite, for example. In that case, you need to be sorting out and getting to the bottom of why you've got that nitrite or any other persistent problems. So yeah, it's not just a case of, right, just chuck some salt in, that'll be absolutely fine. You need to get to the bottom of root causes of issues. So hope that's useful to you, Ian. Crafty, I'm not quite sure what's going off there. I've seen comments on a red achiever. Is it a thing? Red achiever, you get sort of red more reddy strains and colours of achiever. But yeah, I need some more info on that. I've not quite seen the context of that one. Maybe it's in there as I have a flick down. But no, you get different shades of colour of achiever for sure. I mean, we're talking about Japanese fish. You'll always but there's always a brown sort of hue to it as well. So it's more of a reddy brown colour that we're looking for with that one. So yeah, Craft, if you want to shed some more light on that one, mate, I'll happily go into it a bit more. Right. Lost in me again. With an outside pond, what will you do to help your filter before starting to feed the koi? Well, ultimately, what you've got to do is to start feeding the koi because you've got to build the filter back up through the ammonia produced there. That's why you've got to be very, very cautious with how much you start feeding and make sure where possible it's a really consistent amount, because that's what the filter will adapt to. So you might find you start feeding X amount, you'll more than likely get a little spike. What you can do in that instance is use something like the EA filter gel to help deal with that. And then from there, what you want, obviously, that spike should clear off before you sort of go up to them. But then you want to just maintain that feeding level for a while to let the pond adjust to it. If you've completely overshot it with the feeding, then you'll struggle to get the parameter under control. It's always a balancing act with all this stuff. So, yeah, feel free to seed it up beforehand, but even still, you need the biofilm itself to just pick up. So, and let's face it, not everyone wants to be spending money on all these products because none of them are that cheap. So, what if it's just a gradual increment, you get it up, you might get a little spike, which should hopefully clear off. The worst thing you can often do with this is pull away from feeding, because the pond's going to do is adapt back to the lower level of feeding. Like I say, this is why it's such a balancing act. But yeah, just sort of get it there, persevere a little bit. Hopefully, if you get a spike when it's cold, it might take a week to clear off. But all we should be talking about here is maybe a slight nitrite spike, which is less concerned. If you completely overdo it and end up with an ammonia spike, that's a completely different problem. Like I said, this issue 21 of Koi Talk, I've really gone into depth on all this stuff. So do look out for that one. Okay. Ben, how you doing, Ben? Long time no see, mate. Hi, Ricky. Last year I extended my pond from 750 gallons to around 2,000 with auto feeder and improved filtration. Can I expect my 5 to 6 year old koi to kick on with growth, or is it too late for them? Yeah, so can I expect 5? This really depends on where you're at, Ben. You can say kick on, you can probably push the growth a bit more. This is depending really on what size they're at for their age, because if you've missed the big window, kick on might be, you can gain some centimeters. But if we're talking about, say, a 4-year-old fish that's 50 cm kicking on to become 80 plus, then no, probably not. You've got to put it in some kind of context there. But this is, to be honest with you, the best example I can sort of give of this is you will always, if fish are being in an environment that's not been conducive to growth, and you give them circumstances and there's some genetic capability there, you will push it. Just in the 750 gallons, just improving filtration, heating in summer, feeding with the auto feeder, you'll get more growth than you had without doing that. It's just the maximum growth potential that can diminish in the fish. And if it's been too long, you might not get very much at all, and just find that the fish tend to put more bulk on than anything else. So, yeah, I think you'll probably notice a difference, but you're not going to say be all of a sudden taking these fish up to absolutely jumbo specimens. But there will be some unused growth potential in there, most likely. And again, depending on variety as well, and lineage and all the other variable bits and bobs on there. So, yeah, hope the new pond's going well for you, buddy, anyway. Right, here we go. Love these ones. Dave Harley. What parameters do you run your ponds at? pH, KH, TDS. I understand you charge large amounts of water in your ponds. Do you keep good KH when feeding lots of food? No, KH is the main thing that we monitor. Don't monitor TDS. Often pH, we're running pretty neutral, around 7.5. That will slide a little bit if we're not on top of the KH all that much. With the extreme feeding levels, we do burn KH crazy, but we are constantly buffering and bringing that back up, which does pretty much keep the pH in sync most of the time. So, but for me, KH is one that's probably not spoke about enough. It is the glue of the entire system. And if we know we've got KH, for me, I like stable minimum of 3. Upwards, stable being the big word there, but minimum of 3 and beyond. And yeah, that's that's sort of where that's at for me. TDS is one I've just got no sort of time for monitoring, to be fair. And yeah, the results, it's not something I check, and the results were clear for everyone to see in the video I just posted there. And that's that going into its second year. And no doubt if I'd have kept that fish same pond for another year, I've actually now sold it, but another year, that would be cracking on. I think in this next season, 75 to 77, somewhere around that, because the growth has been so explosive in the past 2 seasons. So, yeah, for me, more people need to pay attention to KH, because more often than not, when there are instabilities and problems in a system, you can find that KH hasn't been monitored or buffered or looked after, because it does pin so much together. Terence Gander, what other growing shows have you got planned for this year? We're working on that one. We'll have some news on some more events and stuff coming up soon, Terence, for you, but not gonna say now and ruin the surprise. Sorry, I'm looking for a quality Kohaku. Which breeder do I need to look at, Ricky? Omasako. That's a pretty easy one there, to be honest. He's the absolute sort of king of Kohaku these days. In fact, it does tie in with another question I've got here. Mr. Koi 13, do you purchase koi from Dainichi Koi Farm, Hiroshima? He's probably the only other guy where I'm a big advocate. His Kohaku are also superb, and I believe with the base of Omasako Kohaku as well. Two giants of that world, to be fair. However, Kanishi's a difficult one because of business agreements they've got in Europe through exclusive distribution and whatnot. So we can't actually get their fish into the UK, which is a shame, because he's got some really fascinating stuff going on there with his bloodlines. But yeah, visiting is a complete and utter waste of time, to be fair, because all you're going to do is see a load of nice fish that can't ever get home. So yeah, there we go with that one. Gaz's Koi Pond, Ricky, is it possible to visit your establishment to gain more knowledge and expertise from someone like yourself? No, unfortunately not, Gaz. We don't do sort of visits and stuff like that. Done a bit with Crafty and Lee because it was a sort of bigger picture to it. No, day to day, mate, we are all incredibly busy. Let's say all my time and energy at the minute is on running that business. It's on running the magazine, everything we've got going on in Japan, all the rest of it. So we don't unfortunately have the time to just give to people. That's why we do it this way. The videos, the video content we do, these Q&As, it's an hour of time that can benefit a lot of people. And that's the way that, we'll continue to do it, to be honest with you, sharing as much as we can through that so it gets out to more people rather than having to or spending time one-to-one that only does benefit people. For us, that's not the way to go about it or sharing, what knowledge and information we've got to put out there. And to be fair, it's just that everybody is constantly flat out. Whenever we seem to get someone new into the team, that sort of spare capacity gets gobbled up within a few weeks of them being here, and we're crying out for more again. So, yeah, that's my answer on that one for you. Oh, here we go. Kevin Selwood. Eric, the Tanaguchi Sanki at the Charlton spoke about how Ginrin scales in your opinion, how would you class it, its entry on the show scene? Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm going to bow out that one because Alan is the better person to go with. I personally wouldn't put that fish into Ginrin. It's not a Ginrin Sanki. But, yeah, if he knows the fish, if he's still watching, Al, let us know where that fish would get put. Would it be King Ginrin or would it be into Sanki? I'd be curious to know. Certainly in Japan, that wouldn't get put into Ginrin. But it is one of those fish that creates that level of debate. Nonetheless, whichever way it went, it's a flipping awesome piece. So, yeah. Well, there we go. Nice one. So, yeah, going into Sanki. That's good to hear. So, yeah, because for me, it's all forming part of the incredible luster on the fish that we're talking about. And it's not Ginrin. So that's good to know, because in my opinion, if that fish got put into Ginrin, it's not then strong enough to compete against full sort of Ginrin fish, which would just instantly put a very high quality fish at a massive disadvantage. So on that then, Alan, from a judge's perspective, would there any be demerit for what I'm calling that luster in the scales? Would it be seen as luster, or would you have judges? Would you be arguing it out between you that it could be Ginrin? Let's see if we can get that answered. Richard, have you got new podcast Koi Talk bits coming soon? I've listened to them all now at least 3 times. Need more? Yes, absolutely, buddy. Actually, that's been the topic on the agenda for me and Steve today. So, like I did mention, Rob, our main video guy, has been off on compassionate leave. So he's coming back at the end of the month, which is going to actually start him on a new project where me and Steve focus on more video-orientated stuff, which we've got a really nice sort of strategy cooked up for. So, yeah, look out for more on that coming very soon, buddy, to be honest with you. Gary Richards, when his next bidding live stream? Yeah, that's on Tuesday, next Tuesday at 6:30, and then they will be on every week from then on as well. Oh, there's a good question. I appreciate that you've been in the koi industry since Shiro. What would you consider the early mistakes that you made in the koi hobby that you would advise to abstain from? Rushing stuff and a lack of patience, and this is the hardest thing to get in the hobby. I believe only comes with experience, to be honest with you. I think most of the early mistakes come from too much tinkering, too much messing around, sometimes leaving things too long as well. But yeah, just it's that whole why I think I've come full circle to the sort of keep it simple mantra, because that was the, you know, back then, I'd say the tinkering, the messing around, when there was a problem, trying to do too much rather than doing something, waiting to see the effects from then on. And you know, at times there's pressure, there's panic, and I think that's the reason it has to come with experience, because when you've then been through it and you sort of come out the other end, eventually you know the potential end results. You know you've got time and not to do too much too soon, because I've rushed into stuff panicking and ended up making the situation absolutely 10 times worse. So yeah, that's what I'd say. You know, just try and have some composure. If you know stuff's not right, you know, observation is absolutely key. It always has been. My dad used to hammer this into me of constantly just going out when I was at the shop, checking the tanks all day long. And that's to the point now where, you know, it's something we can just walk past, and the amount I'll catch out the corner of my eye is remarkable. But it's only practice that allows that. So be sure to pay so much attention to observation, because your fish will tell you everything. And then, yeah, very, very early days, but I'm going to forgive myself for this because I was like 13 at the time, I think, was, you know, if you do notice something wrong, you've got to act on it, and act on it fast, because something small at the time, or, you know, the start of a problem, can be quite easily fixed. But when left, these problems can just escalate and become so much bigger. So there is no just wait for a week, see what happens. I was possibly more distracted back then with football or my PlayStation or something. But yeah, that's the one. But patience, and this is a huge problem, I think, in koi keeping, full stop, is patience with not just with koi, as in, you know, problems and waiting for a system to mature, building up a collection, but then also with fish development. That's the biggest sort of area we see that come unstuck, because patience is really needed. You know, sometimes you can have fish at 5-6 years old that's still 2 or 3 years away from hitting their peak, and so many young fish that you can just dismiss, you know, because you've grown it from toe side to this side. You don't think it's going away that you want, or you're not patient enough that the sumi's not come up, for example, when all of a sudden 3 and 4 years old, it can accelerate and just go for it. So yeah, that's probably the biggest ones that say patience and not leaving stuff. They're pretty big ones. Right, let's have a look. Crafty's come back to me on that one. I've seen a fish that was listed as red achiever, but it isn't anything I've seen anywhere, but it stated a high quality red achiever. I'd have to see the thing, to be honest with you, buddy. This is not something. The only term I've used it, the term I've actually come to think about, used it, heard, is the operation out in Poland with the red achiever, which was actually something that Jos himself had created. I believe if that might be what you put in reference to. I'm not sure, but it's not something that's recognised in Japan in the slightest. Like I say, you can get a reddy brown colour, but ultimately it is reddy brown, not red, and it's not termed as red Achiba or anything like that. They're just Achiba. So that's as much as I can offer you on that one, Crafty. Sam, what to look for when selecting a strong Benny Goi? If you're talking strong, you want to be looking big, but if you're talking Benny Goi selection full stop, again, expect the head to be stronger than the body. That's perfectly normal. You want to see pigment sat in the cells. If you want that really rich red color, you're going to need that. Expect a female to be slightly, lighter in color than a male, which is going to pop that more intense. If you want that really super intense color, you want a male one every day of the week. You can get it with the females as well, but you're going to have to be more patient. It's going to take more time to develop. And then just, the usual stuff, buy them from a good bloodline and try and actually track it down. This is where value has been built into Benny Goi, because like Dainichi, for example, we know they're coming from the Red Tiger Kohaku line. So we know what to expect. Some breeders who have a random batch of Benny Goi, they could have come from Showa, which you can probably imagine some of the issues that can create because there's black in the mix there, which is not what you want. And then you're going to get the body traits. And we're like with the Dainichi Benny Goi, we've had a lot of, say, from Red Tiger, you've got that skin quality, you've got the body, you've got the genetics, everything there to make the best of that single coloured variety. So that's what I'll be looking for. Just bear in mind, from them big lineages, they are going to cost you for sure. Right, folks, I'm just going to hit one more question, and then Alan's just come back to us there as well. Seen as a positive luster to high quality skin, fantastic. That's good to know, buddy. Thank you. Last one. Trevor Lowry, which other food would you use, Ricky, other than sake akari, and what ingredients would you look for in a good food? Right, I can't answer. Well, I can answer it in that right now, that's not even something I'm contemplating. The only reason I would change is if, from a financial perspective, I had to, but it would be the last thing on the list I would make it to. Absolute last thing. Don't get me wrong, I consider that all the time because of the money spent on it, but I know nothing out there compares, not even close to what it can do. So for me, it would just change the dynamic of everything so much. That's it. But ingredient-wise, still a big fan of fish meal based. High quality white fish meal should be the primary ingredient in the food. So other than that, the rest of it, I leave it to the people that know. We can break down this, but again, when you're looking at that list, you can look at all the ingredients in a grow food, for example, but what you won't see, if the fats and the carbs and the proteins are not balanced correctly, that food's not going to perform how you want it to. That is something that Saki cracked from the research paper that I read many, many years ago. They got this blend absolutely spot on, the balance to them. So as they produce what they called fat, by saying fat, they meant healthy volume added to the fish without creating the heavy belly underneath or anything like that. So always a tough one because I am massively biased on that one, mate, to be fair. But if I had to use something else, honest to God, that would be a very, very difficult one for me because I don't know what direction I would truly head with that and actually still be happy. It'd be a struggle. So there we go, folks. Actually, I've just seen one there that's caught my eye, and we'll call it a day after that. Trevor Halford, good evening, Ricky. Do breeders in Japan use similar forms of filtration on their indoor ponds, i.e. jack mat, or do any of them use fluid bed systems like us? I don't know. I think Mariju possibly. There's a couple using drums now, not many. Mariju might have introduced the fluid. I remember in-depth conversation me and him was having about it when he was building his new fish house. I'm not sure if he went ahead with it. But other than that, jack mat and oyster shells are still the primary filter medium that a lot of the guys are using. There's other bits they play and experiment with. Sponge of all things, they're looking at biologically, though, as opposed to mechanically, which I can see the sense in. Is quite useful. But yeah, I'd say, when I say behind the times, yeah, not a lot really changes. Obviously, you got Momotaro and their Backy House media for above pond filters. But yeah, most of the time, still very, very simple and unchanged in what they've been doing, which I do believe they will benefit more from what they're doing, using like fluid beds and stuff like that. But it's just not something they've got into the swing of introducing. And one thing koi breeders don't like doing is spending all the money that they're sat on a lot of the time. So, and sorry, bead filters are one they do see. The Japanese bead system, they seem to sort of obsess about. It's a fully automated self-cleaning system, and they're pretty damn pricey as well. And you often normally see them at top-end breeders who have got the money to sort of splash on them. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you very much, folks. Been cracking evening. I think we've ripped through some questions really, really well there. Like I said, we're going to start on Friday doing some of the pre-recorded sessions on getting back on the backlog of old ones. And then from then on, we'll just be answering them on the live feeds. And yeah, if it doesn't work, then I'll take that one, Crafty. If it doesn't, I'll invite you back the next week to come and fire the questions in. But we'll do the best we can with that one. While you're here, one last look at you or one last look for you all before we go. This epic monster of a Dainichi Showa. There we go. There it was at Tosai, and now coming through as a 70 cm male Sansai. What a beast! Absolutely epic. Love that. Going to be sad to see it go. That's for sure. But unfortunately, just not the pond set aside this year for pushing it on again. Because I would have liked to have seen how far we can get it. Oh, there we go. Craft is just stealing one more, folks. Yeah, please don't forget the raffle, the charity raffle we've got running to win the Uchiba. I think I've got the screen for that here somewhere. There we go. You can, as little as £5, get an entry into that one. All you've got to do is just head over to the Just Giving page. Say stick a £5 in per go, and that's getting drawn at the next available episode after the end of the month of our Q&A live to see who's won the Achieva. But yeah, great cause. Fundraising is going incredibly well on that one. But let's try and get it up to 1,500 or more. That would be absolutely epic. And thank you to everybody who's already supported that one. Your help's greatly appreciated. That's all from me, folks. I'll see you next week.